Hey, this is Danny Eni with Firepole Marketing, and you're listening to Stephanie O'Brien's Moved by Purpose podcast.
Before you can market yourself, you really have to figure out what it is you want to do and who you want to be. And one of my favorite phrases, I learned this from my grandfather, who said, you can't be all things to all people. And I think that's really true, especially when you decide to become an entrepreneur and you're starting your own business. You think, well, I could do that, and I could do that, and I have skills here, and, I have expertise here. But I think it really starts with, what exactly do you really want to do? Like, what exactly gets you fired up?
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
You are listening to the Moved by Purpose podcast, and it is your host, Stephanie O'Brien. I want to remind you all to check out my mastermind group if you have not connected with me already. And by the time this show airs and is published, there's actually still space for you. I know space is filling up, space is limited, and time is about to run out. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you take action and do not delay and miss out, because this does not get opened up until another 6 months. And today's guest is Katie Lance. She's a social media expert. She is the CEO and owner of Katie Lance Consulting, and she specializes in social media strategy and content development. She works with brands in the technology and real estate industries. She is also nationally known as a great keynote speaker at conferences and events, teaching the latest tools and strategies in social media, mobile, and technology trends. She's been featured on the Huffington Post and Inman News, among various other publications. And without further delay, I am going to welcome her to the show. Welcome to the show, Katie. I am thrilled to have you on today.
Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie. It's an honor to be here today.
So the first question I ask everybody is to ask the guest, what is your work history and kind of what happened that caused you or led you to starting your business?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short for your listeners. My whole background is marketing and branding and sales, and I got into sort of the real estate industry about 10 years ago. I've always been interested sort of in marketing and real estate, so I started working for a real estate brokerage about 10 years ago as a marketing director. From there, I went to work for Inman News, which is one of the biggest media companies for the real estate industry, and got a chance to work for them for quite a number of years, was their social media director and chief strategist, did a lot of training and blogging and speaking and wore a lot of hats. And it was towards the end of 2012 where I started to feel like I was ready for the next thing. And so I started sort of quietly looking at my other options and sort of seeing what else was out there. And it was sort of through that process, and I had a few people say, well, why don't you start your own business? Why don't you start your own consulting firm? And it's funny, my first reaction was like, oh, no. I can't do that. I've got 2 kids and I'm married and et cetera, et cetera. And as I went through this process, I realized I don't want to just work for one company. I think it would be actually kind of a cool opportunity to work with a number of different companies and to work with a lot of different brands. And not only that, but really at a point, I have 2 young boys. Right now they're 4 and 7. And I've always worked full-time with them. I mean, both my husband and I are full-time and a lot of irons in the fire. But part of me really wanted that quality of life. I was commuting an hour each way every day of the week. I really wasn't able to work from home. And although it was a great company and a great job and a great kind of trajectory, I just felt like for what I want to do in my career, the money I want to make, the place I want to be at in 5 years or 10 years, and to have that quality of life, that's sort of the path that led me to go out on my own. So in 2012, I started Katie Lance Consulting, quite frankly, because I couldn't think of a better name for my company than my own name. And I've been pretty blessed in the sense that I become, fairly well known in the industry. So I figured, okay, I'll brand my name. We'll go from there. And I just really kind of hit the ground running. And so my company to date has been very successful. I work with a ton of different companies within the real estate space, so a lot of brokerages and franchises, as well as other tech companies, really helping them with their social media and digital strategy. And then I also do coaching and speaking as well. I'm a featured speaker at a lot of conferences. I speak probably a couple times a month. And it's been one of those things where it's been fast and furious, and I'm just so happy. I was just thinking to myself the other day about, for some people, it's not their thing to go out on their own. I don't know if it's in your DNA or whatever it is, but it's certainly not easy. I mean, I've been working harder than I've ever worked in my life. But at the same time, I've been working on my business, and I'm just so passionate and so fired up about it. So it's just really awesome when you figure out what you're supposed to be doing and when you really focus on your gifts and your talents. And I feel like that's where I'm at right now. So it's super exciting.
Yes, and there's a lot of people in my audience that are really trying to get that clarity of what their gifts and their talents are, or they're really drawn to the idea of starting something, but they're also just so overwhelmed about where to even start.
Yeah.
There's a lot of business advice out there, and there's a lot of experts in certain areas that really press in on the importance of certain things.
Yeah.
So it can be contradicting and overwhelming. You'll have the graphic designer pressing in the importance of branding, business cards, website, all of that. But what would you say is a really safe place to start and begin when it comes to marketing your message and your brand?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I agree. When you first start, you start to ask everyone their opinion, and everyone's got a different opinion, so then that doesn't really help you. Then you just become more overwhelmed because you've asked 20 people and you've gotten 20 different opinions. So I think, honestly, what I did is I just sort of, I guess, turned to myself and went a little internal, and I think really focused, first of all, I guess to take a step back, before you can market yourself, you really have to figure out what it is you want to do and who you want to be. And one of my favorite phrases, I learned this from my grandfather, who said, you can't be all things to all people. And I think that's really true, especially when you decide to become an entrepreneur and you start your own business. You think, well, I could do that, and I could do that, and I have skills here, and I have expertise here. But I think it really starts with, what exactly do you really want to do? Like, what exactly gets you fired up when you're like, oh, I get to do that? That's awesome. And you come from a place of being excited about what you're doing, not just, yeah, I know how to do that. And for me, I know a lot about marketing. I've done PR and email marketing and traditional marketing and social. And I just felt like, what I'm fired up about is social media. And so I'm going to focus on that for my business. And so I think that's sort of the first step, is figuring out exactly like what gets you fired up. And then it's funny, I'm sort of the poster child for starting off without really anything. I didn't have a website for the first year of my business.
Okay.
I don't know if I recommend that, but for me, it was all about hitting the ground running. It was really about the personal relationships. I was able to reach out to a lot of people that I knew and really looked at my network as kind of my marketing. And so I think regardless of what business someone has, I think your network, in fact, there's a great book of this. Porter Gale, who's the former CMO from Virgin America, wrote a book called Your Network is Your Net Worth. And I completely believe in that. If you don't have a lot of money, you're a scrappy startup, you're not sure where to start, like, look internally at your network, and that's a great place to start. And then the business cards and the website and all that stuff, that falls into place at some point, but it's really about hitting the ground running. And don't wait, don't wait 6 months because you don't have a website. Just start today with something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my advice.
True to my song, do something.
Exactly. Just do it. Nike had it right. I think sometimes, and I don't know if it's a female thing or what, but sometimes I think we just wait because we think, oh, I want to get everything ready and I don't have a business plan and, this and that and whatever. It's like, sometimes people don't like that phrase, fake it till you make it. But, that was how I was when I first started. I was like, I think I know what I'm doing. I don't know. And I just put yourself out there. And as you are going through that process, you will figure it out. Like, as you start talking to people and talking to customers or clients, you will start to figure it out because you have to, right?
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there.
So a very common question that I get from a lot of people is, I want to start my own business, but I'm really introverted.
Mm-hmm.
And so they believe that the successful entrepreneurs are all extroverts, that you have to go door to door and speak to tons of people, and that's the only way you're going to make it. Mm-hmm. But first of all, that's not true. Right. I mean, most of the entrepreneurs I network with are introverts. And in this day and age with technology and the internet and social media, mm-hmm. it is now easier than ever to build relationships without having to do the painful in-person networking or that awkward stuff if you're just not comfortable with it. So how can you use social media to build relationships?
Well, I think that's a good question, a good point. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are introverted. I mean, even some very successful public speakers and professional speakers are introverted. They feel more comfortable on a stage in front of 1,000 people versus afterwards answering questions one-on-one, right? Mm-hmm. So I think social media has really given us a whole new opportunity to network in a way where we're comfortable. We're sitting in our jammies on our laptop, and we can use different social networks. I think Twitter is probably one of the best resources for an entrepreneur. When you really look at what Twitter is all about, I think Twitter is a great opportunity. You can reach out. You can do the advanced search function in Twitter where you go to search.twitter.com and you really start to plug in search terms that have to do with your business. So if you're in the wine business and you've got a wine app or you're trying to sell wine, search out, people talking about Chardonnay or Cabernet or wine events, and you start searching specific things that have to do with your brand. And then because of the nature of Twitter, jump into the conversation and really be a source of help, answering questions. And I think that's one way. And then, of course, with Twitter, searching out your own network and connecting with people that you know and being a valuable resource. And then a piece of that is also just putting out some really good content. When you start blogging or creating some content, maybe it's some video content, putting that out through your social networks and then sort of tagging some key people. Hey, so-and-so, I wrote this and this made me think of you. I thought you'd like this. And instead of just blasting out, I think a lot of times, especially with Twitter, it becomes this megaphone where everyone's yelling at each other. Mm-hmm. But, it's like roll up your sleeves and dig in. There's a great opportunity to really network. Instagram's becoming that way as well, where you can search specific hashtags, or if you're a local business. I mean, if you're a local, some boutique business, you can do some amazing local searches within Instagram, within Twitter, even within Google. And a lot of it's just kind of, like I said, rolling up your sleeves and not being afraid to tweet or to reach out to people that you don't necessarily know personally yet, and understanding that with social media, that's okay. I mean, you're not going to send them a Facebook friend request, right? You don't know them, but you can certainly tweet them. You can reach out to them on Instagram. That because of the nature of the network, it's perfectly acceptable. So in this day and age, I think that's a big piece of it. And then, also using tools to help you facilitate that. I mean, I'll just give you one example really quick. For my email, I have an email that's powered by Google, so I can use, all the Google apps. And one of my favorite plugins is a plugin called Rapportive. You might have heard of Rapportive. Rapportive is fantastic. And basically what Rapportive does is when you're sending an email, a pop-up will appear on the right side of your email, which showcases that person's name and all of their information, but it'll show their public social media profiles. So if you reach out to the editor of Fortune magazine or Forbes or, Stephanie O'Brien or whoever it might be, you want to take that conversation from email to social. Again, you're not going to probably connect with them on Facebook per se right out of the gate, but maybe you're going to send them a LinkedIn request, or you want to connect with them on Twitter. Rapportive is a great way to kind of bridge that gap between email and social. So that's just one little tool. I think it's great, especially for networking.
We'll get back to the show after this quick announcement. Want to know the secret behind the people that have built successful 6-figure and 7-figure businesses? I know I sure was wondering what that was. Of all the entrepreneurs I have interviewed, all of them have invested in their training and in the success of other people. So what is the fastest way to grow your business? You probably guessed it right if you've been paying any attention to any of the leading experts out there, and that is by joining a mastermind group. The best mastermind groups require a financial investment. This ensures the commitment of every member in the group. The free ones just do not have the commitment from the members. They have inconsistent attendance, which ends up being a waste of everyone's time. If you want to rapidly grow your business, it just won't happen if you do not invest any money. I hate to break it to you, but the businesses that grow the fastest are due to the fact that people have invested in their own personal and business development. They have invested in a mastermind group, hired coaches, paid for trainings, marketing, a supportive team to delegate and offload the responsibilities. It is a fact that you cannot build your business alone. Without the feedback, input, and idea sharing or brainstorming of other business-minded people, you will not see the success you are hoping to see anytime soon. Who is looking at your sales copy, your website, marketing flyers? If it's a friend or a family member, do they own their own businesses? Who is helping you process through and solidify networking strategies and rocking that sales process? What about the pricing on your packages? I cover all of these business boosting techniques and strategies in my mastermind group. So join my mastermind group to learn all the strategies, secrets, resources, and share ideas that will get you transitioned out of your day job in a year. This group is for people who are already clear on their business idea and are hustling to make things happen. This group will just speed up the success and boost your profits. At a bargain price of $250 a month, you will not find any other mastermind group out there like this that has the amount of training and coaching made available to you. Think you can't afford that? Trust me, you really cannot afford not to. Home study programs, books, and consuming free podcasts and blogs will only get you so far. Building your business with a group of committed members is the missing key to your business success. Don't delay. Register today and get a $50 off per month bonus. Yeah, no, honestly, I have not even heard of this tool, so I'm really glad that you mentioned it.
Yes, I love it.
Sounds like I've been missing out.
No, it's awesome. And I think, I know I'm biased with social media, but I think that's a big trend we're seeing for entrepreneurs is this sort of social intelligence where there's apps and products that will help you network better. It will help you bridge the gap. And it's not just getting connected to tons of people, but getting connected to the people you want to connect with. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, and I want to ask, what are the common mistakes that you see people making with social media? I see people that their goal is to just build up their platform and get like 1,000 followers, but in my opinion, I think there needs to be a strategy with those followers. You don't want just...
Right. Yeah, anybody you could go, you could buy followers, you could buy likes, which is a big mistake. I see people all the time. They think, oh, well, if I'm going to create an app or I'm going to write a book or I'm going to do whatever, I need 20,000 followers. I'm just going to go buy those. And that, first of all, is one of the biggest mistakes I see is people going and buying likes or buying followers. And there's nothing wrong, by the way, with doing Twitter advertising or doing Facebook ads and doing some strategic advertising that are building up your followers or likes. But there's so many kind of third-party sites where you can go and buy followers and likes, and that's a huge mistake because you're kicking yourself really in the foot by doing that. So that's a big mistake. I think the other big mistake is over-automation in social media. Everybody wants to save time, and so what happens is a lot of people will use programs where they just push a bunch of buttons and everything gets automated. And I think there's a place for automation. I schedule out some of my content. I use a variety of different tools to do that, but there still has to be a point where you are responding to people in real time. You're being authentic. It's not just this auto feed of noise, So I think that's a big mistake. And it's interesting. If you look at a lot of people's Twitter feeds, 90% of what most people tweet about is they're blasting out information. It's like they're standing on the street corner with a megaphone just shouting,
Yes.
Versus truly engaging with people. And I have a phrase I always say all the time, no tweet left behind. Which means anytime someone takes the time to retweet or to comment, it's important to respond, even if it's just thank you or a smiley face or you click that favorite button or whatever it might be. And that goes across all social platforms. It's amazing to me how many times people will get tagged in a photo on Facebook or they'll get a private message on LinkedIn and that just falls into a black hole and they never respond. It's a very simple thing, but it's amazing to me how that can make a really big difference.
And so what would be, and I totally agree with you, and someone listening might be like, okay, I know this, but I have a business to build.
Right.
Or I'm working full time right. Or trying to get clients. And how on earth am I going to have the time to do all of this? I can't sit and stare at my social media all day.
Right. No, agreed. And I don't think any entrepreneur should be on social media all day. The irony is I run a social media business and I am not on social media all day long. I just can't be. So
Right.
I think it's a matter of setting up systems, and any entrepreneur knows this, that you've got to have systems for your business, and social media's got to be a part of that. So I think a few simple things: figuring out what points of your day are you going to go on Facebook or Twitter. Maybe it's a few minutes in the morning before you jump on email. Maybe it's a few minutes while you're eating your lunch, and then maybe it's a few minutes in the evening when you're sitting in front of the TV. But beyond that, I think it's important to have, obviously, a strategy. And I always recommend using either a content calendar or an editorial calendar, somewhere where you can sort of think about what type of content are you going to put out there. And you can use something as simple as Google document or an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I mean, it could be Post-it notes, but just having a system. And that's why, I do believe in some scheduled content. The best entrepreneurs that are really maximizing social media are on social media a little bit here and there throughout the day. Then they will set aside, maybe 30 minutes twice a week where they're going to schedule out some of their content. And then the last thing is they've got some systems in place. So they've got, if they have a Facebook page, they've got the Facebook Pages app on their phone, so they get a notification if someone messages them, or they get a notification if someone comments, so they can respond right away and they don't have to be on Facebook all day long. So I think it's really kind of two big things: setting up systems, being pretty strict about your time, not just with social, but anything. Sometimes I think we spend all day on email, and then at the end of the day, we're like, what did we accomplish? Wow, I was on email for 6 hours.
Gosh.
So the most important thing we have is our time. Our time is everything. So having a system for social media, and also figuring out getting a calendar in place, and that can be a little overwhelming, but I think that's a great place to start. And if you've never done an editorial calendar for social media, I think one of the easiest places to start is take out a blank piece of paper and a pen, or open up a Word document, or however you do it, and just brainstorm and ask yourself, what are the questions I get asked all the time? If you're a business owner, there's probably questions you get asked all the time. I work with a lot of real estate agents, so it's all about, is now a good time to buy or sell? What are the best ways to get your home ready for the market? What kind of realtor should I hire? Like, all these questions we get asked all the time. Just brainstorm. And if you take 10 minutes, you could probably come up with 20 or 30 ideas of questions you get asked all the time. And those could easily turn into quick and simple Facebook posts. Maybe they'd be turned into blog posts. Maybe they turn into videos, depending on your bandwidth and what you have going on. But just taking that time, I think, is a big thing that, it can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And keeping it simple.
Yes.
I mean, I think people also get very overwhelmed by all of the technology.
Yes.
And I mean, I am 28 and I got overwhelmed by the technology.
Right. It's so
I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much out there, and I had to learn it all and stuff. So I really feel for people. I get it, because I grew up learning the technology with computers and all of that, and are pretty comfortable with it. But even then, it's it advances so much. You're like, okay, even the most tech-savvy person is probably struggling a little bit to keep up with it all.
It's true.
So,
well, yeah, as soon as you figure it out, it changes, right? As soon as you figure your phone out, then there's a new phone or a new app or
an upgrade that changes everything. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I hate that.
Yeah. So to keep things simple, for me, Google Docs is my favorite kind of tool. And I just do outlines. I'll just put my ideas and try to outline the plan, or use a spreadsheet, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's nothing too fancy here.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have heard,
thing. Just keep it simple.
Yes. People tend to trip themselves up or hold themselves back because they overcomplicate it. And I have to remind myself too, when you're building your business, you could see these people that have really established businesses, 6-figure, 7-figure businesses, and you're trying to model or mimic them. And there is something to be learned from success. Mm-hmm. At the same time, it can be very dangerous.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you want to say, oh, I want to do it like so-and-so or so-and-so. But again, it kind of goes back to being true to yourself, and who you are and your vision.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it has been an honor to have you today, Katie. I've learned tons. I've been taking notes, and thank you for the resources and the tools. The very simple strategies to follow. It can be done. It is manageable, And just really thank you for sharing your expertise today with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. I love talking about stuff like this. And if I can help even just one person who might be listening, I hope it's worth it in and of itself. So I appreciate it.
So before we part, where can people connect with you and find you?
The best place is just my website. I do have a website now.
Okay, good.
It's just katielance.com, and there's all my social networks on there, on Facebook and Twitter and all the networks. But katielance.com is actually the best resource, and I do actually have a free resource for anyone who signs up for my email newsletter. I have a free content grid that I send out, so that might help with any of your listeners who are just struggling with content strategy and figuring out how to make that work. So.
That sounds very valuable. Thank you for informing us of that.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again, Katie, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too, Stephanie. I think one of the easiest places to start is take out a blank piece of paper and a pen, or open up a Word document, or however you do it, and just brainstorm and ask yourself, what are the questions I get asked all the time?